Hey, everybody, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Women in Youth Ministry podcast. My name is Heather Kennison, and today I have 4 guests from the Women in Youth Ministry team. I have Lonnie Fancher, Kat Bear, Sunny Brown, and Jennifer Weaver. So I am going to have each of them introduce themselves, share a little bit about what you do like in life and also for WYM, and then share one fun fact about you. So why don't we start off with Jennifer?
Well, my name is Jennifer Weaver. I am a children's minister at a church here in Arkansas. I basically, with Women in Youth Ministry, wear a lot of hats, whether it's helping moderate the Women in Youth Ministry Facebook group, planning fantasy football, and being a decorator extraordinaire. So basically, if Heather says, "Hey, I need this done," I'm like, "Girl, I got you." So like many of us others in this group.
Kind of what we all do, I think. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. Interesting fact about me. Let's see. I've been having a concert year. Like, went to go see Taylor Swift, Ed Sheeran. Like, really want to go see Taylor Swift again. So, but I don't know if that's gonna happen. But I'm in my concert era.
I love it. The children's ministry money in Arkansas can go to Taylor Swift twice in a year. I don't know anything about that.
I wish. No, it's my husband's money.
Yeah, need a sugar daddy. All right,
Yep.
Sunny, how about you next?
Yeah. First of all, I love Jennifer. So I'm Sunny Brown. I get to serve in, again, wherever Women in Youth Ministry needs us. Sometimes I'm singing, sometimes I'm being like the usher board. It just depends. So fun times. Book club. I mean, it's really whatever. I also was the snack coordinator for a second, during the conference. So it just depends on where we're needed that time.
We really need snack coordinators.
Right. But I think, in my daily life, I'm now a teacher. So I get to hang out with middle schoolers, which we all love young people. And so that's the fun stuff that we're doing. I think fun fact about me is that I have 7 kids. So I always have youth church with me. So that's fun.
7 young humans. Speaking of young humans, let's go to Kat.
Hello. Hi, I'm Kat. In my day job, I'm a consultant and a project manager for ministry incubators. So I work with churches and nonprofits on innovation projects. I also, mostly as my day job, am watching my infant twins, which is what Heather is referencing. For Women in Youth Ministry, I did manage the blog for a while. And then, like I mentioned, infant twins. And so that's taken a backseat, but I'm still involved with the kind of leadership and helping recruit amazing women to be speakers or to be on the podcast or to be write and kind of just being part of the team. So yeah. Fun fact about me, I went to high school with Kesha. Yeah.
Did you guys brush your teeth with a bottle of Jack in the morning?
That's exactly what Brentwood High School is like.
That's the reputation of Brentwood High School, I think, right?
Yes, Brentwood, Tennessee, where they brush their teeth with bottles of Jack. Yeah.
Anyone who's listening to this who's from like the Nashville area is literally rolling their eyes so hard.
Yep. All right, Lonnie, you're last but not least.
I am Lonnie Fancher, and I did not realize until this moment that I'm like the last bastion of youth ministry, full-time youth ministry in this crew, which is terrifying for, I don't know, me or the future of youth ministry. You guys have to plug into all of the people because we need you desperately. I'm so thankful for all of you. I am a full-time youth pastor in Texas, and we all just kind of do whatever Heather says that we should do. That's kind of all of our jobs. But I work on the conference team, and I recently spoke at a conference, and that was fun. And just literally whatever Heather says that needs to be done is what we all do.
That makes me sound
No,
like
let me
a
get this-
dictator.
No,
She's
it's
not a dictator.
But like a benevolent dictator, a
you're- well,
benevolent dictator.
that's what
There's
I
just
tell
so
my
much
kids
to be
youth
done.
We're under
ministry
your
is like they'll want to
umbrella.
vote on something. And I'm like, no,
I know.
this is a benevolent dictatorship. Like you think you have a choice, but really, no, you're just an
No.
excellent delegator, right? You
Yes.
have
There
gotten
we
to the
go. There we
point,
go.
you've gotten to the point where you realize you can't do it all, which is like real life character development, because that was not true like 5 years ago. I think maybe she started to trust us a little. And so now, like when stuff comes up, you just plug us all in where we're gifted and plug us into our strengths, which is really helpful as a leader, to know that you're not going to ask me to do something that you're like, hey, you have no skills for this and God has not gifted you in this at all, but it needs to be done. No, you like figure out which one of us is gifted and help us do the thing. For instance, you have never asked me to decorate anything because that is not my jam.
So my narrative of the situation is not that I started to trust you guys more. It's that
Someone's on the defensive.
a little defensive. It's that the
Energy someone
ministry,
else.
the ministry started growing and you all said, how could I help? And that's what happened.
Okay.
We didn't have a conference and because I wanted to, y'all wanted it. We didn't
That's
have a
not
book
wrong.
club because I wanted to, y'all wanted it.
Definitely wanted the book club. Yes, agreed.
Didn't we have a
We
dream
love
about the
everything.
conference? And we did the conference Kiss My Dream.
Yes.
I don't know.
We did a conference because people became feral during COVID.
It's true.
It's
We
not
needed to meet
wrong.
our online friends. That's what it was.
Yeah, it
it's
really
true.
was. How do we connect with all these people that we have only talked to on the internet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So today I've gathered this crew, and I would say like not only are they like leaders within WYM, but they're amongst like my inner circle of people. So they're like my treasured friends, and we text literally every day. Yeah, every day.
Every day.
So I'm really excited to share them with people listening. And if it's hard to listen to us, you should definitely watch our episode on YouTube because I know we're going to be talking over each other this entire time. So when we were asking people to submit ideas for the podcast, somebody threw out there that we should talk about some of the youth ministry trends that need to die. And this is where I was like, I have to get the team in here because I know we have a lot of opinions. Like Lonnie said, she's the only one who's full-time in youth ministry and in a parish, still like in this call, but we've all done youth ministry or still doing it in some capacity. And we all have feelings about youth ministry. So that's what we're talking about today, some youth ministry trends that need to die. I have made a list, and I know that others have brought some ideas as well. I'm going to start off with a few. What do you guys think about youth pastors, men, talking about their smoking hot wife?
So weird. So weird.
So weird.
So weird.
Yeah,
So
It's
objectifying.
so awkward.
And it sets up this weird thing that's almost like you're inviting your students to like imagine your sex life in a way that like, and also it's highlights this idea that like, do you get this sort of prize as a hot wife if you like stay chaste all through your dating life, that the kind of prize at the end of the tunnel is this like hot wife who is a sort of like sex Barbie, you know? And it's like, it's just a weird, you know what I'm talking about, where it's like,
I
yeah,
do.
she's going to be into all this stuff. It's just kind of a weird setup for students conceptually. And also on a very like practical social level, how do you respond to someone saying they have a hot wife? Like, do you agree with them? Is that
Like,
then
yeah,
you like
she is
hitting on
pretty
their
hot.
wife? You're like, yeah, she banging. Like, what, how do you respond to hot wife?
Like, I'm trying to imagine what it would look like if we were all like, hi, meet my smoking hot husband. And people would be like, ick, right? Like, that's weird for women to say. So I feel like if it's weird for women to say, then men should not say it.
We're going to talk
As
about this in another episode. I interviewed someone about grooming in youth ministry. They were groomed as a teenager, and we were talking about this, and also like, why do a lot of youth pastors, men, when they're telling their testimonies to their teenagers, why do they talk about the hard thing in their life being pornography? Like, why are you just meeting a group of teenagers and you're like, and you know what the big thing in my story was? I loved porn.
Because I'm a man and I have manly urges.
I have manly sin.
Yeah, that's really strange. I will say my husband is very, like, he originally was that type of guy, and not in youth ministry, but just like if I walk past him, he's like, I mean, he does this, right? So one day I had a conversation with him and I said, honey, every time you do that, I like really love school. And for those, those of you who have never met me, I really like books, and I really like, to read and to talk about higher education. And I was like, I'd really like it if you were like, your brain is amazing, or you are so. I was like, can we start talking to our one another and to our daughters and our sons with words that don't talk about what they appear like, but instead like who they are. And so it's been like this really beautiful thing to see my husband, instead of calling our daughters beautiful, which they are, of course, but instead saying, you are brilliant. And you are so bold, and you are so strong. You are such a genius. And to watch our kids as they go to school, Mercy's teacher is like, oh my goodness, you're so good at math. And Mercy says, I know, I'm brilliant. Like, because what she hears every day, right? So imagine if we were able to talk to young people, and we were encouraging young people, and husbands encouraging their wives, and wives encouraging their husbands, not as, oh my goodness, thanks for providing today, but you are such an encourager. And you are so bad. Like, if we started to use those type of terms of endearment, it really does change, I feel like, the narrative. So one thing I always do when I get up to preach and I'm talking, you do your 2-minute intro, I'm always like, I really love to shout out my husband, who every day reminds me that I am his partner in every single way. And I'm so excited that he does not feel that he has to dim my light to be in charge, that we are in charge together. People literally have come up to me afterwards and like, I don't remember nothing you preached about, but I really the relationship with your husband and how supportive that you guys clearly walk together. It's not like a hierarchy, it's very horizontal. So yeah, I absolutely agree.
Love that.
I bet it is horizontal.
Have a solution. Like, there are other ways you can talk about your partner in another way. Just
wrong.
Just kidding. You were so serious and I became so unserious. Yeah, 7 children. Come on. It is horizontal later.
So clearly we know we find each other attractive. So
what Sunny's saying is
undefiled.
What Sunny's saying is her husband does think she's smoking hot, but that's not how they speak each other.
You got that fun brain.
Here's another trend that I think needs to die. What do you think about games with food?
I cannot with games with food when we're wasting food in a culture that lives with so much food insecurity. Especially if you have a program. Well, I mean, either way, either if you have a program that's filled with kids who are affluent, teaching them to be more wasteful is antithetical to the gospel. But if you have a program that is inviting and open, then you never know who your food insecure kids are. And we don't know who those kids are in our programs, especially if they're like visiting with friends or whatever. So doing food games, it's just weird.
Agree.
It's really gross. I don't want to eat a Happy Meal that you blended up. Like,
right.
I literally wrote that down. What about like pies in the face, or like being like dumped with like a bucket of ranch as a consequence?
Can we, like, expand this into like, why is humiliation like a funny like way that we engage in youth ministry? Like, why do we like seek to like humiliate? Like, why do we make kids do things that are embarrassing and like, we play games that are like, I was a full-time youth pastor until a year ago, for the context of the podcast. like we played games that were silly and dumb, but they're very like elective, like you opt into doing the silly, dumb thing. But it feels like there's kind of like this temptation in youth ministry to do things that are like intentionally sort of humiliating for kids. And it's like, that just, like, it makes like the ick factor on that is really high for me. Like to have kids, like they don't know what they volunteered for. And then you make them dump a bottle of ranch on their head, or make them try to like drink the smoothie, and kids are like gagging on stage or something. Like, I don't know. I think there's some icky territory in there we need to be aware of.
Yeah. If we do embarrassing stuff at youth group, the people being embarrassed are like me or other adults, right? If we're doing, well, pie in the face or ranch dress, we don't do those kind of things. But if we were to do those kind of things, like dumping slime on your head or whatever, it would be a prize for doing something. And so now the adults are all covered in ick.
Yeah.
I think you have to elect to be humiliated. If that makes sense. So like, I am on the fence about those types of games in general, because on one hand, I think it's okay. Like it's okay for people to like normalize embarrassment. So like there was like a game where I played where there's like some consequences, and again everyone agreed to it, and I told them if you do the consequence you get a prize, but you don't have to do the consequence and you don't get the prize. So it's like trivia. If you get it correctly you get the prize. If you get it wrong you have to do a consequence and you can still get the prize, or you could just walk off stage. And one of them was like lick the wall, which is like a really silly thing in and of itself, and they did it and they got it, but they also didn't have to do it. Or like food wise, I'm not like dump a bucket of ranch girly, but I did make a pasta game where I took 10 different types of juices and put them in a pasta maker, and I made like pickle pasta and clam juice pasta and ranch pasta. And I told everyone, hey, this could be gross. And the people who did it knew what they were doing, and it also wasn't disgusting. It wasn't like, here's some mold. It was fine.
For those listening,
like a public health hazard.
Just a way to expense a pasta machine when you are looking.
I still got that pasta machine.
Looking to buy a Ninja Creamy and wondering how you can justify it for your youth ministry. This is how.
Oh my gosh.
That's a brilliant idea.
Listen.
Wow.
So there's a certain Dallas-based youth pastor who was known to use her youth ministry's slushy machine to make take it home and use it to make margaritas at her house for parties. I won't drop names, but she knows who she is.
Do I? I think I know who she is.
She's probably listening. Yeah.
Hi, friends.
Hey, girl. Hey. Hey, girl.
We love you.
We love you.
Hey, perks of the job. Okay. What do you guys think about the measurement of success being how many kids were baptized or confirmed?
Well, first, I think a lot of times the measurement of success is how many kids are in the building. And even that gets to be interesting to me. Because so I'm always like, I mean, Jesus hung around with 12. So if I got 12, I'm on a good day. But it gets that numbers game. While I absolutely understand data, I do think that we spend so much time getting into what is gonna almost like we're events driven instead of ministry driven. And it drives me up the wall. Because I think that if we are discipleship driven, if we're like actually building those relationships, you know, if you build it, they will come. They will. They will tell their friends if you're really building those relationships. But we're spending money doing these big splashy events. They're gonna come for that night and they are not coming back. So what do we do? Go ahead, Kat.
No, I was just gonna say, have you guys ever heard of the group photo is your job insurance? Like, have you guys ever heard of this being like, this was a thing we joked about all the time when I was back in Texas, is that you have to get the big group photo of as many kids standing there as possible. Because it's the only way to ensure you keep your job until the next opportunity. Until the next big event. Photo. Yeah. And if you don't know 30% of the kids in that picture, who cares? Like, you know.
It's true. I mean, like when I would make brochures, it's like, I'm not, it has to be the bulk, because I need people to see that I had 200 kids crammed into this photo. I need people to think I'm successful.
I think it's indicative of the church though, right? Like that is a trickle down thing. That's not youth ministry exclusive. The
It's true.
reason our youth ministries are accountable to that is because our churches are accountable to that, whether from your diocese or your conference or whatever, insert your, denominational term here, that they're being held to conversions and new members and professions of faith and baptisms and all of those things. And so that's the only metric they know to judge us by, right?
Do you guys think that changed at all during COVID? Like, do you think there was a glimpse of like a different way to practice ministry in that?
I think there 100% was. And I think some churches are still doing that. Like my church is still really trying and really striving for that. And I'm not held to the same metrics that my other friends are, but it's a hard thing, right? Trying to figure out what metrics are we using if we're not using numbers?
Yeah, I have a whole rant about that that we can go down another time, because I think it's worth exploring, like, what are other metrics that we need to be measuring? And I have a whole spiel about that because it was very frustrating at my last parish post-COVID. And even before, I, just like noodling through like success in youth ministry isn't what it was. It's not how many people come. It's how many people are connected, and connection doesn't always come like the way that we've traditionally thought of it. Connection doesn't always mean that they're here. It also means that I saw them throughout the week, or I went to their games, or they texted me back. They didn't ghost me this time, or
this time.
Yeah. Or like they're participating. Yeah. Like they're participating in some way, or they're volunteering, or they're at this thing at the church in the week. They went to the service event. Like that's success too. So anyway, yeah. Here's another one for you guys. What do you guys think about the trend of having a 20-year-old youth pastor, a very young youth pastor? 20 is just an example of a number, but like super young youth pastors.
I think if you have a super young youth pastor, you're asking for your super young youth pastor to date your super old youth. Like you don't get to be surprised when your 21-year-old friend is now interested in the 18-year-old girls in the senior department.
Yeah.
With my convention, it's like, okay, you have to be married if you're going to be a youth pastor really super young, which is, can be problematic too, because it's like you've been together for a semester and now you're married and this is your first youth pastor job. I've seen a lot of people get divorced pretty quickly after.
No lie, at OBU, I stopped dating music majors and ministry majors my senior year because they were all just looking for a wife before they went to seminary, because they were all having church jobs that required them to be married if they were going to get these church jobs. And I was like, I would like to know somebody before I marry them, or just not get married at all.
Yeah, I think it's hard because there is an advantage. So I hired a lot of like 19-year-olds and 20-year-olds and 21-year-olds as interns when I was youth pastor. Is that I think there is an advantage of having someone around who is like really like in step with what the trends are, what the kids are talking about, and having, a lot of times we had interns, like having a person there who teenagers felt like they could say anything to, like just truly like whatever their like chaotic date was or whatever. But I think in my experience that worked best when that person then had a like adultier adult to go to and be like, hey, so like the girls and I were up gossiping super late at night and they told me about all the boys they're dating, which is fine, or the girls they're dating, which is fine. But then they also told me that like this girl told me she's puking after every meal. And it's like, okay, well, we need to unpack that. And I need to process that with you as like how you were processing that as a 21-year-old. And then we can go together to take our next steps to handle that in like an appropriate way. Like, I think having that super young presence in the form of volunteer or a small group leader is great, but I think only when it's balanced with someone who can help coach that 21-year-old into what it would like to be a full youth pastor. I wouldn't feel comfortable like having, I think it's hard because like 21-year-olds are also called to youth ministry. And I don't want to be like, well,
Right.
you can feel your calling later, but I think they need to feel their calling while being partnered with someone who can help walk them through the really hard parts of youth ministry, like the really like heavy stuff, you know?
I completely
Absolutely.
agree. I think it would be a disservice to count out young youth pastors. And I know that there's like
Right.
a lot of young people in youth ministry who like cannot find jobs because no one will hire them young.
Right.
But I feel like if you have the supports of older adults in place, then they can be set up for success. And
Right.
I mean, all of us should have additional volunteers anyway. So why not?
Yeah.
I think it also, though, we like, it kind of piggybacks on my pet peeve is sometimes we use youth ministry as the training ground to be a real pastor.
Mm-hmm.
Real pastor. Like youth ministry isn't doing the absolute most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we like, no matter what you're called to, like, oh, you're called to ministry, go be our youth pastor for, you know, X amount of time until you've paid your dues, and then you can graduate to working with adults. And that gets all over me because, I mean, no wonder we have so many kids who are struggling with their theology or their faith because they've been trained by people who were still figuring out for themselves, right? So yeah, it's if you are a person who is called to youth ministry, and lots of people are, like I personally am, and you can start that young, I am all for that. But if you know that you are called to like preach in big churches, then, and that's like your ultimate goal, then it kind of gives me the ick if you're just starting in youth ministry because you feel like it's the first step to your 5, 10, 15-year plan.
I used to feel that way. I don't mind it anymore. Not like, obviously I mind the mentality of it's just a step, like,
Right.
but I don't mind that people say, because I think there's so much that you learn while in youth ministry. I think it's like a microcosm of the church as a whole. And I think it's great when senior pastors have done youth ministry before, because there's such like a siloed feeling that youth pastors have from the rest of their church. Like we're always in scarcity, like all the time. And I think a lot of that would be fixed if senior pastors were more understanding and empathetic of what youth ministers are going through.
Oh, I totally agree. I think it's the expectation that you're just there as a stepping stone that is problematic, right? Like like now that you have your degree, you can go be a real pastor somewhere. Like you haven't been doing real ministry for the whole time you've been in youth ministry.
Also, I hate the mentality. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm like, I hate the mentality of like, you're too old in youth ministry. Like, you know, whenever you hit 40, oh my gosh, like you better go and find you a senior pastor job. You know, whenever some people are called to do that for the rest of their lives. Like, so I really hate that mentality of like, I hate when people think it's just a stepping stone, but at the same time, like if somebody wants to work their whole life in this calling, like let them do it and don't guilt them into getting a real job in church.
And I think what we're also, because you're young doesn't mean that you automatically, like if you're young and you're called to ministry, that doesn't mean you're called to youth ministry.
Right.
It's not like automatic. So sometimes people are young and I'm like, no, you should be like a teaching pastor somewhere else, not in youth ministry. Like you're not relating to them, any of those things. So it's a specific calling too. I agree with you, Jen. Like some people are called, you know, some of us are called to really serve young people, and some of us are young, but that doesn't mean that we're called to serve young people.
Yes.
Yeah. I will say too, like Jennifer, I was literally thinking the same thing as you when you brought that up. I get better with age. Like I become a better youth minister with age. And I don't know if I'll do youth ministry forever. I think I'll always do church work. But I certainly feel called to youth ministry. But I know that I get better at age. And they might make a lot of mom jokes about me now because I'm the age of their parents now. And yes, like I'm not as hip. And yes, I have to work on understanding the culture more, 1,000%. But I also get better. I have more discernment. I have more wisdom. I see what's going on better. I'm more curious because I'm getting older and have to stay curious. I'm 1,000% better than I was.
Oh yeah,
And
as the old crone and crazy matriarch in the circle, who's been doing this for 20 something years, right? Like, I get better all the time, and the more I do this, the more it solidifies my call that this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. The more I do this, I'm like, ooh, God bless people who work with adults, but that's not it for me. Teenagers are the jam. So
I do not want to work with adults. Keep me with the kids, please.
I mean, I am thankful. It's like, for people are called to work with adults in ministry. People are called to be accountants. Like, I am thankful that God calls people to that so that I don't have to know or do anything about it. I'm just going to stay where I am. And they are thankful that we exist, right? Like, how many times in ministry are you told, oh my gosh, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do teenage,
annoying.
I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, it's the best job in the universe, but please keep thinking
Bless your heart. It takes a special person to love the middle schoolers.
Is the Southern accent necessary?
Yes. Bless your heart.
Listen, Miss Indiana.
Yeah, don't you live in Minneapolis? Okay, wait, can I offer a trend? A trend?
Yeah.
There's the one I'm thinking of specifically is every youth group has to have a small group ministry, but I'm thinking more broadly, it's like the idea that, like, if the big church down the road is doing it and is pulling numbers, we have to do that thing. Small group ministry, Wednesday night program, fifth quarter, whatever. So the idea that, like, that youth ministry is one size fits all, and you can just copy and paste one program from one context to another.
Social media has literally created competition. Like, it has blown it up. And it's always like somebody will send you a post from another church. Like, you don't know what that church did.
You should try this. Like,
we should do this. Why aren't we doing this?
Yeah. So
they have $1 million and we have $10. Like,
I wrote about this for CYMT recently, but like I did this like innovation project with CYMT where we developed this like fail-safe studio thing. And I talked about it on the podcast before. And the amount of people who called me and were like, oh, I want to do this at my church. How did you do it? Like, give me some tips. I'm like, don't do it at your church. Do your own thing. Like, the reason it worked is because it was responsive to the specific needs of the teenagers I was working with. Like, you do not need to do this program. Like, you need to do your own program that is responsive to your teenagers. Like, you're just setting yourself up for frustration if you keep trying to clone other people's stuff, because it's never going to work as well in your group as it does for the group it was designed for. And so, like, but there's a thing you are called to do, and like, you're inherently creative and thoughtful and can listen to your people and figure what your own thing is. So I'm just like, but youth pastors get this pressure to have a small group ministry, to have a student leadership board, to have a worship team, to have these specific things that were developed by somebody else for some other ministry.
Anybody else have any icks before we go to a rapid fire round?
The ick that youth pastors moving around so quickly. Like, you'll be at a church for like 18 months. I think, like, what is it right now? Like, you're a youth pastor for 18 months and then you move on to another church, church.
That used to be the trope. I have no clue what it is right now, because I feel like more and more people aren't even lasting 18 months.
I was going to say, I don't think it's that long anymore, but I don't know if there's any new data out.
Yeah.
I'll have to call Fuller and Princeton and have them get on all of the things.
Yeah, but I agree. That's a huge red flag to me if someone's bouncing around a lot. But I know Sunny will challenge me on this because I feel like it's a red flag. But Sunny reminds me all the time that churches be doing the most. And
I was going to say, I think it's a red flag for churches. If your church can't hang on to a youth pastor for more than 18 months, then it's probably not a healthy church. or maybe not. Like, there's some not healthy component of what's happening there.
Or you can get gaslit into staying for a decade.
Not that anyone in this room is talking from personal experience or anything.
So, all right. So rapid fire. I hate that term. Is there a better term?
Rapid fire?
Yeah. Is there a better term than that? It sounds violency. speed
We'll iterate
round.
on that later.
Speed round.
Speed
Yeah.
round. Here we go.
Eat around.
Okay. How about the phrase "no purpling"?
I just added
Heteronormative, homophobic.
Right. I just added no hot pinking and no navy bluing, and like people moved on with their lives.
There we
Right.
go. Siloed youth ministry, having youth ministry completely separate from the rest of the church.
Okay, but if we don't like other people, like, can we silo ourselves? Like, what if everyone else is lame? You know,
The real thing.
Well,
Just
I mean, and I've been a part of churches where like the rest of the church wasn't necessarily the healthiest place to be, but we were doing some really good stuff in youth ministry. So I had to be real
Yeah.
careful of like, how do I protect what we have going on here and still challenge them to engage in the church without totally siloing ourselves, right?
So we're fine with siloed youth ministry. That's where we've landed.
I mean, I hate it in theory, and most of the time I hate it in practice, but sometimes the mama bears come out.
I worked so hard to unsilo the youth ministry, and then when the rest of the church was wildin', I was like,
right.
we're coming back.
Lock it back, lock it down.
Locking everything back down. Absolutely.
Okay. What do you think of the trend of full-time youth workers? Is that a trend that's going to die?
Mm.
It shouldn't. It shouldn't. They're needed for sure.
I don't think it is. For a while, like if you had asked me 5 years ago, I would have said I thought it was. But I don't think it is, mostly because I think youth ministry in the last 5 years has taken a trajectory where we're doing actual pastoral leadership in youth ministry as opposed to just playing games and doing a devotional, right? Like youth ministry is more than that. Youth ministry is meeting kids at Starbucks or talking families through some really hard situations, or being the voice of reason and experience when kids are struggling in lots of different things, and challenging youth leaders and youth pastors to step into that role as opposed to telling them to stay in their lane and they're just there to like babysit teenagers and make sure nobody breaks things at church, has been an evolution that has happened in the last, I don't know, decade or so, that I think is really good. So if you had asked me 5-10 years ago, I would have said, oh yeah, like we're working ourselves out of a job and there will be far fewer places paying full-time people. But I don't know that that's true anymore. I think more and more churches are recognizing the need for somebody who understands teenagers and can pastor to them exactly where they are. And if that continues, then youth ministry continues.
I think I have the opposite take just from working in this new role with a diocese, is like the church attendance is just like dying off across the board, especially in mainline churches. But I think even evangelical,
I was gonna say mainlines are doing better than evangelicals right now. So we'll see.
Yeah. And it just seems like more and more youth ministries can afford. I'm curious to see, it seems like some denominations like the Episcopal Church are moving to more of like a diocesan model of youth ministry. There are some United Methodist conferences.
What a vocab word.
I know.
Right. She's also thrown in parish like several times. Like she's all of a sudden like Episcopalian.
I have changed. I said priest before the call too. So I know I've been 3 months Episcopal. But anyway, I'm just curious to see like, are there more like churches who are going to like team up and do youth ministry together? Whether it's jurisdictional or just like organically.
Yeah. A lot of my consulting work and is with like Mountain Sky Conference, the UMC, and like these kind of, and like out west and kind of north, and Baltimore Washington Conference, so these kind of less traditional strongholds of the Christian church, and a lot of these people are doing cooperative parishes. They're doing one youth pastor to 4 churches, and they do all their youth events together, so they still have critical mass, and it seems like it can be a really fruitful model potentially, like especially it's as a path forward for lower budgets.
But even that model means that it's
still a full-time youth worker,
full-time somebody, even if they're over multiple churches, right?
This is a topic for another day, I think, because I think we could talk about this for so long. Oh, gosh, I should not have sprinkled that in here. How about using students as free labor? Hey, do you have some youth who can help me rake my leaves?
Stop.
Right? Like, it's just weird.
It's so weird.
My resolution for 2022 was to stop answering questions that people wouldn't ask, right? Because people don't like come straight out and say that most of the time. Like, they don't come out and ask for free labor. They just like dance like, oh my gosh, like the leaves in Miss Susie's yard are really piling up. And like, I would just stand there and just smile at them and be like, man, that stinks, until they would ask the question. And then maybe we can help, right? But if you're just gonna hope that I volunteer teenagers to do free labor, then you are gonna hope for a while.
I have like a few more. When youth pastors dress like teenagers.
Okay, no, I do this.
I was gonna
Don't
say,
shame
shut up,
me.
Heather.
Shame me. Don't shame me. I dress like a teen. I'm not a youth pastor anymore. I've been out of youth ministry for a year. I'm now a mom of 2, and I still dress like a teenager all the time. I have a 21-year-old nanny, and she and I dress the same. I like it.
Sometimes I
Don't.
hate how corporate I've become in the last like few years. Like sometimes I look in the mirror and I'm like, ugh, but like I will wear my dresses with my chacos. I'm still trying to keep young somewhere.
Okay, but that's not teenager. That's youth
Right,
pastor.
that's youth pastor. That's not teenager.
Like, I wear boyfriend jeans and chunky sneakers. Like, I dress like a
super wide-
youth.
My super wide leg jeans and my Air Force Ones. Like, that's what I'm wearing today.
Don't
Yeah.
shame me.
Yeah.
I'm wearing slacks and a blouse. I hate me.
But your makeup looks fire.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I just got
you're
my hair
fierce.
done yesterday too. So
looks really
Can
pretty.
we talk
Highlights.
about how like this hair evolution of you, it's just mwah,
So good.
so fire. Like, you're living
10
into your
years
best
ago.
life.
I quit
10
my
years ago, it
job.
was like box dye, you know, and now it's like.
I haven't washed my hair in a week because I have infants. And I went to the gym this morning.
Look at you.
Yeah.
I pray a shower is in your future. Here's another one. Adding teenagers on Snapchat.
Why would you want Snapchat anyways as a youth pastor?
Listen,
That gives me the ick.
I'm a huge proponent of Snapchat because I'm a believer that
Hot
all
take.
things can be redeemed. But like all things are like, Snapchat is just a tool, just like anything else, right? But there are caveats. Like, I only use Snapchat for ministry. So that there are no wires that get crossed in any other, like, oh no, I accidentally sent a teenager something on Snapchat that was inappropriate. You can't do that if you're only talking to teenagers on Snapchat, or you can, but you didn't accidentally do anything, right? And Snapchat does group texting, group messaging better than any social media platform out there. So like, you can, like, I have basically my entire youth group is in one giant Snapchat group chat. And they respond to that in ways that they don't respond to normal group text or remind or any of those things. And it doesn't. Yeah.
Do you just leave the archiving on?
Well, so the thing with group chatting is it doesn't disappear until everybody in the message has seen it. And you always have at least one person who like has never checked their Snapchat in
That's
like
funny.
the history of time.
It's really funny.
So yeah, so I have a Snapchat group that has like 42 kids in it. And it's great because it's instantaneous and they harass each other. Like, school starts next week and I have like most of my kids will start on Wednesday, and then I have some that don't start until the following Monday. And so on Wednesday I'll post like, hey, raise your hand if you're one of the people who didn't have to go to school today. And like, you know, it becomes a whole different youth group experience. But one-on-one group Snapchatting or one-on-one Snapchatting with kids is setting yourself up for trouble.
Do you send pictures of yourself in the puppy filter to your kids?
No.
That's just all I think about. I deleted Snapchat.
I don't send anyone a puppy filter selfie.
Well, you
I feel like if you did, it would end up on your Instagram that you're.
Oh yeah, because my kids totally have an Instagram that is just mocking me. So
this is true.
Good.
Okay.
It is. It's good.
One more trend, Billy Graham rule. Can you meet one-on-one with men?
Yeah.
I don't like to, but not just because I don't like
to.
them. but it's not like I don't have a moral issue. I just like don't have any male friends. Sorry, Matt, if you're listening, I have like 2 male friends. So, no, I mean, that's so dumb. That's so dumb. Sometimes I don't like to meet with men one-on-one just because I don't trust them. But that's
Right.
not like because I'm like worried about like I don't think my husband cares at all. But like, I don't know. I think I would not like if like a youth dad was like, oh, come over and have coffee with me at my house. I'd be like, no.
Nope.
Like,
But I would have no problem like meeting them one-on-one somewhere.
like at a coffee
Yeah.
shop. That's
Yeah.
fine.
So I agree with you. On one hand, I'm like, anyone who says they live by the Billy Graham rule, like you're like oppressing women. But then I'm like, I really don't want to meet one-on-one with a guy because I don't
Exactly.
trust any men.
Also,
Right.
can we talk about how heteronormative the Billy Graham rule is?
So
Yes.
weird.
Right? Like it's from an era where we assumed that no one was queer.
It's true. All genders
no.
fall in love with me.
Right? I mean, listen, some of us
Listen, I'm a temptation to everyone.
to everyone.
I'm a temptation to I can make anyone stumble. So,
Can we put that on a sticker? I can make anyone
Yeah.
stumble.
I can make anyone stumble.
So good. So good. Okay, that's it on my X list. So we
Good list.
have a tradition of closing out the podcast with we are the Women in Youth Ministry podcast. We hope that all genders listen to the podcast, but we care about women. That's why we're here. Do you all have something you want women to hear today?
I think mine, and it's something I've been learning to do as of recently, and something that we've talked about in the group about what I would tell a woman that is looking to go into ministry. And one thing that I said is don't make yourself small to fit into what they think you should be. And that's been something I've had to learn these last some years. I mean, honestly, people like Heather and Lonnie and Kat and Sunny and Bethany that is not here today, they've taught me that. And I want to encourage other women to not do what I've done in the past.
I would say other women are not your competition and other youth pastors are not your competition. They're your biggest allies.
Right.
I mean, I've been saying it, it's been kind of my mantra for the last year and a half, but if ministry is where God's calling you, then that's where you're supposed to be. Wherever God's calling you is exactly where you're supposed to be. And the people who might speak out against that are not as powerful as the voice of God in your life. So do not give them that amount of power. Like God has claimed you and given you a calling, and anybody who wants to come against that, good luck to them. But
yeah,
that's great. And Sunny's not here. She had to jump off because she's setting up her classroom and the school's Wi-Fi is acting crazy. They start on Monday. Get your Wi-Fi together, school. But yeah, I thank you guys so much for being on. It's so fun to have like some of my friends on here. It's gonna be a joy to edit because we were all screaming over each other at certain points because that's who we are. Yeah, and
this has been fun.
Yeah,
so fun, Heather. Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
I'm thankful for all of you.
Awesome.
Like you guys are just my dear friends, and yeah, I would not do this if it wasn't for you. I would not, could not.
Like, I mean, to piggyback off what Kat said, like we're all here and better at what we do because we've got each other, right?
Yep.
Women supporting women.
For those listening who have not joined our Facebook community for women, please do so. If you're Gen Z and don't have Facebook, that's okay. We still like you. You can follow us on TikTok.
And you can join Facebook just to be in our group.
It's true.
It's the only reason I'm on Facebook.
Yeah, lots of people only have Facebook for our group, so you wouldn't be alone. All right, guys, thanks so much for being on, and thanks everybody for listening. We will see you all very soon.